We are gargoyles. Dark Demona's out to slay those she loved but did betray.
Edwin is frozen Gotham City.
Arctic Batman emerges in his new polar armor suit.
My little pony girl.
You can add more ponies to your pony family.
Mighty Max, Mighty Max!
It's Mighty Max! Welcome to Skull Dungeon.
Wow!
Ripster, Slade, Jam, and Big Slam Jump.
Tonight, and Darkwing Duck!
You can join the adventure with Darkwing, Launchpad, and Goblin against Megavolt. All 4 characters free by mailing in 1 fruit from Kellogg's Frosted Flakes.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, with a very special treat today. We are here in the studio with our friend J-Doggg. How are you doing, J-Doggg?
Hi, everybody.
All right. So yeah, today J-Doggg and I, two 90s babies, are going to talk to you about what you voted for us to talk to you about, which is 90s toys. So, just going to do a little bit of an intro here for those of you who don't know what the 90s were. The 90s were the point of time between just the year right after 1989 all the way to just before the year 2000. So mostly the 90s were a time where 10 years passed and things happened that we happened to be alive for.
This was kind of before the fall of humanity, you know?
Yes.
Before the bad times.
It was in the long, long ago. But if you disagree with me, J-Doggg, please feel free to chime in. But I think the best way to describe the 90s to a non-90s person is the 90s were the 80s on steroids.
See, this is the combination, I believe, of the 80s and the 50s on steroids, essentially, because...
Explain.
What you got was these commercials that were completely, like, just insane.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look back at the 50s, they had all these child actors who were promoting all the toys, and it was kind of the same thing, just enhanced.
I do agree. I think, though what I was more getting at was, so in the 80s, we started to see that more. There was a lot more, there wasn't the oil crisis, so both, disposable income and availability of plastics became a lot bigger, and that's what a lot of our toys were made out of. But so then, the 80s came along, we started getting toys that were... like TV shows that were made to sell toys. We started to get the video games. And then in the 90s, because of the success and the excess of the 80s, there was even more disposable income. The ability to make these toys better and cheaper became a big thing. So it seemed like everybody was trying to cash in on the fact that people had more money to spend on buying their kids shit.
Oh yeah, and parents were at an all-time high of, please give my kids something so that they leave me the fuck alone.
Oh, very, very much so. Very much so. But, yeah, so, like, certain things that started in the 80s, like He-Man, or I think even Ninja Turtles started in the 80s, but they were still hugely popular in the 90s. But it was also not only that. I kind of put a lot of the 90s into 2 categories when it came to kids' toys. 3 categories, sorry. One was, these are cheap toys with a ton of variations, collect them all. There's... hey, somebody made this idea that's really popular, let's rip it off but make it just different enough to not get sued. Or, hey, we're going to take something that's totally not for kids and make a TV show for kids about it, and also toys.
Yeah, they pretty much did try to take as much adult content and shove it down our throats without us knowing.
I mean, and some of it we even knew, like there was a RoboCop kids show, and I had not seen RoboCop. I knew it was rated R, but I thought I'd seen RoboCop 3 later on because it was only PG-13, and later on I went and I watched the original RoboCop. There are R-rated movies today that aren't as violent and bloody as original RoboCop. Like, that film is intense.
I mean, it essentially was just our parents didn't seem to understand exactly what was going on or didn't care. They were just...
I mean, there was Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which was a kid show based on Tales from the Crypt. It also had a series of toys.
Yeah, no, of course, why not? Basically, it felt like adults, as long as it was a cartoon, it was kids.
When I was 2 years old, two years old going on 3, Terminator 2 came out. There was a series of action figures that we all desperately wanted. None of us should have even known what Terminator was. There was no cartoon. It was just violent movies.
To be fair, nowadays we also do that with the Marvel universe.
We
kind of like
do.
infantilize it for kids, or kids are watching this stuff, and you're like, "Why are you here? You should not know any of this."
I
This
mean,
is
when I
not
went to see
appropriate."
Watchmen, there was a 5-year-old in the audience, so
Oh,
that's
dear
just a
God.
bad parent.
It's like I tried to explain kind of that concept of, if you have a common enemy, everyone else will get along. That's kind of how 9/11 was.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's true. At least for America, everybody
I
came
mean,
together,
yeah,
right?
that's true. I don't know what that has to do with 90s toys, but I agree with you.
Hogs. No.
No, so I think John, why don't you get J-Doggg, why don't you get us started off with, what was one of your favorite toys from the 90s?
Hogs. Literally tiny little cardboard things that you put into tubes, and you battled against each other by stacking them and then throwing them down. And I forget exactly the rules of it, but essentially, if it hit them off of the stack, you got to keep them.
I believe if it hit them off of the stack and they were turned upside down, you got to keep them. If they landed right side up, they went back on the pile.
Okay. See, I learned all these rules in Peru, so I was just like, it might be right, it might not be.
That's
so who
fair.
knows?
I remember distinctly when my father, so my dad had this weird thing in the 90s where if somebody he worked with had something cool or even like the littlest bit neat, and they were trying to sell it, he'd buy it off them and bring it home, and we wouldn't know. It was weird that my boomer father is the one who introduced me to like trends at the time. Like, he was so much more like on the note button of like what was cool than I was. But he comes home with like a massive collection of Pogs, and that was my introduction to Pogs. Hell, I remember you could at the grocery store put like 2 quarters into a thing and they'd like spit out like 3 Pogs for you to take home. Or the really cool kids had whose parents bought them the make your own Pogs kit.
Oh God.
But I remember when my elementary school banned Metal Slammers, and it was my damn fault.
What did you do with the Metal Slammer?
Played Pogs, but so my friend had this really thin, really dense, heavy Metal Slammer, and we were playing with it, and I threw it down on the pile. It bounced off the pile, hit him right between the eyes, and like cut it open with his own slammer. Again, did not mean to do that. I mean, he is wailing because he's just gotten his head split open by a. I mean, it was probably very minor, but we were all terrified. And
blood at that age.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
And yes, so the next day it was like no Metal Slammers were allowed.
Oh man, you ruined it for everybody.
I did.
You
I
ruined
really did.
But I mean, like, they had the randomest crap on those Pogs. Like,
Oh,
it had nothing to do with anything half the time.
That, and then I also remember having a book. It was from Goosebumps, and it came with a set of Goosebumps Pogs that were the covers of the books, and then like a little like trivia and facts about the books, and it was just like a collection of like 12 Pogs that my parents probably paid way too much money for because it was themed.
Yeah. That was kind of the thing about the 90s, is that none of these toys actually had any real value. They were just kind of cheap whatevers, and kids were obsessed because of commercials and because it was popular at the time.
I mean, every commercial for kids' toys in the 90s could have been like summed up as, "Hey kids, do you like stuff? Well, you're gonna love things. There's over 18 things to collect. Demand that your mother buy them all. All right, the blocks that we knocked over are sold separately." Like, so there were always blocks.
There were always blocks, and the things always did things on their own. You didn't have to like do anything to them. They would just magically appear and like do all these, different things, and then half the time at the end of the commercial it would say, "Doesn't actually do this."
Yeah, no, that was the thing. Like, we were sold lies and we loved it. So
Yes,
like I mentioned
from
before,
the
like
top.
Ninja Turtles were really big in the 80s, and they were only getting bigger in the 90s. It was like the Pokemon of its time, which was also a thing in the 90s. But like,
Well, Pokemon was how we ended up becoming obsessed with collecting things.
true. I mean, I blame Monster in My Pocket, but from the 90s, where there was like over like 100. Again, those cheap little plastic toys, which I have somewhere in this room we're in right now. The Jabberwock Monster in My Pocket that I spent over 20 years trying to find and just found like 3 months ago.
I feel like there was something called like Mexican jumping beans or something, and or,
Was
like,
it
Homies.
Muscle?
It
Or
might
no,
have
Homies.
been.
I remember
Or like
Homies.
Homies, but
And then there was Beans. That was a game.
Beans. Okay, maybe no, that was that weird
Mighty
game.
Beans.
Mighty
Yeah,
Beans.
yeah.
Okay, but yeah.
Or Bones. Bones was the one that you somehow could like throw them down. I don't know how the game worked.
Sure. No, but yeah, it was essentially, what is the cheapest crap we can make and sell to kids that they're going to want and collect and spend a ton of money on and beg their parents to have.
I mean, as a miniatures guy, I with no shame say some of my favorite miniatures I had as a kid, despite one of them would have definitely been the Star Wars Micro Machines, because Star Wars was also the big reason we started collecting.
True. But Micro Machines are still amazing. My kids just inherited some from their uncle.
Dude, they came back out with them, and I was like, this is... Where have you been for the last 15 years?
I mean, some of the unique features that they had. I started playing around with them, and then I accidentally found all these hidden compartments and things. Really?
I had the one that was the helicopter that actually flew. It was connected to a bar, so it hovered. But I had a helicopter that could fly around its base. This was cool. But no, one of my favorite minis were those 50-cent plastic ninjas you could get in the vending machines at the toy store. You'd just gone through Toys R Us, seen all the best toys that they had to offer, and you're still begging mom for a 50-cent plastic ninja.
Oh no, it gets worse if you actually were in that part of society that went to the dollar store back then, or the thrift store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna get a bag of random crap that's probably missing half of the things, and you're going to love it.
Oh yeah, but what one of the saying was Ninja Turtles was big. So what did other companies do? They're let's make our own Ninja Turtles. And they made these things, and not only did they not get sued, they put them on TV with their cartoons directly following Ninja Turtles. So you could start your Saturday morning off with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Then you'd watch the adventures of the biker mice from Mars. Next up would be the Street Sharks, who were totally jawsome. And then you would end that segment with the Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
Oh, you can't leave out the actual, the Mighty Ducks?
Wasn't that more 2000s though? Or was that 90s?
No, that was 90s.
That might have been on
cartoon Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
No, that was totally 90s.
That's fair. I've heard a lot of people's sexual awakening was the female duck. I'd never watched the show, so I can say that it wasn't...
Lied. That was Rescue Rangers. That was Chip and Dale.
I don't know, man. I just know I had the biggest crush on the Pink Ranger.
Oh, everybody
yeah,
did.
Seriously.
If you didn't, then yeah, no.
Dude, the day Power Rangers premiered was also the day the X-Men cartoon premiered, and that was that's the best random Saturday of my 5-year-old life.
Oh yeah, no, literally. I have not been in a heavier mosh pit than when this group called Power Glove. Not kidding.
I mean, they sound like the coolest band ever.
No, the drummer came out with battle flags on his back. But yeah, no, they played heavy metal versions of Power Rangers, X-Men. What else? I think it was. Oh god.
Did they do Batman the Animated Series?
I don't think they did, but they did do Metroid Prime.
Okay. Yeah, that was the thing, too, is X-Men, I thought X-Men was something new as a kid, because all of a sudden it was on Fox, and then there were action figures everywhere. I didn't know that X-Men had been around since the 60s.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's one of my favorite comics of all time, but I didn't know what it was. I thought Wolverine's name was X-Man, because he was on all the promos. He would do his claws and be like, X-Men. I'm like, clearly that guy's name is X-Man, and he's part of the X-Men, because that was how 5-year-old Mr. Sean Brain worked. I remember having a toy gun, again, 90s toy, bought this at the Big Bear grocery store. It was one of those little plastic guns with the metal trigger that sparked. The only thing that made it X-Men was they put a tiny X-Men sticker on it, and that was my favorite thing. It was I'm an X-Men, I have a gun, pew pew pew. Because who needs mutant powers when you have spark gun?
Of course.
My mutant power was spark gun.
You always had your character that you played when you were at school, and that was your character. You always played that character.
Then you always had the kid though that didn't want to play the bad guy. So because you took turns being the bad guy.
But he's the one who got his head sloshed in the toilet because he complained too many times.
It's like the kid who gets asked to solve a math problem and starts crying.
Oh god.
Yeah.
No, that's always
that kid tried to bully me in elementary school. It was like, dude, I can make you cry with numbers. How are you gonna do this? Your friend can bully me, all right? I can't do anything to him, but I can send off crying with words. Not even mean ones. What's 1 plus 1? Sorry, little bitch.
Math hurts.
Yeah, literally, how are you gonna be a bully when you cry when the teacher calls on you to solve a problem in literally anything. Like
Too much pressure.
You can't be the crybaby and the bully kid. Like
you have to have like one of those weird new guy moments.
Or like I feel like if you were like what was that terrible anime show Devilman Crybaby where the guy just cries for no reason all the damn time.
I don't know. Devilman was like that weird one where he turns into.
Well, yeah, but there was like a new Netflix one where like the character that became Devilman also just uncontrollably cried for no reason, like his eyes were just always tearing up. I don't know.
Oh, that is weird.
I got really tired of that one. I didn't finish it, but I feel like unless you like literally are just crying for an undisclosed medical reason and then can like turn into a demon, I'm not gonna be intimidated by you.
Yeah, no.
It didn't matter that he was like twice my size. He was Crybaby Kid.
But yeah, so we always had like our people that we played or our favorite characters, of course, from the show.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I feel like everyone wanted to be, either Cyclops or
Wolverine or Gambit.
Okay, well Gambit, that was like, yeah, that guy was amazing. I still can't believe they haven't really made a good interpretation of him.
I feel like they're afraid to make a movie because until recently, all of their movies sucked, and like we can't. Like Wolverine is cool enough that we can't really ruin him, but if we fuck up Gambit, we're just screwed. Like they'll never forgive us.
There's only so many characters we can F up before we get canceled completely.
Like, I feel like they can forgive us for not knowing what to do with Wolverine, but like Gambit, like if we don't do this right, they will just leave. Like, I don't know.
Screwed up Rogue.
They screwed up everybody.
They screwed up Jubilee.
Again, I am so excited. Speaking of like 90s and X-Men and the X-Men toys, the new X-Men show coming out on Disney Plus, the cartoon that picks up where the old one left off.
Oh, nice.
It's called like X-Men 97 or something like that. Yeah, like that's going to be good. And I really do hope they re-release all. I mean, they've kind of started re-releasing those toys, which also shows you how great 90s toys are, is that when like something is like receiving like a wave of popularity, instead of making new toys, they just re-release the shit we had.
No, but I think that's more great marketing in the fact of, guess what? All the 90s kids, we just have this like nostalgia factor. We want to go back to the 90s. We want the kids again. We do. So that's the easiest way for us to get that fix.
But like the other thing in toys in the 90s that was amazing is the board games. Like we went ham with like the 90s, in the 80s, video games started, but like they also board games were still very much like they might have one battery operated part, but it was usually just something that like made noise. In the 90s they're like, well, we've got animatronic everything. We're competing with video games. We're competing with TV and all that. What do we do? So you had all of these games with like moving parts, like Forbidden Bridge.
The game's Forbidden Bridge. Dare to cross Forbidden Bridge. But if the angry idol shakes it, you can fall to your doom.
Where you're trying to like steal rubies from this, because colonialism and exploration is great.
Of course.
And we should steal all native treasures for the goodness of American and British museums.
Right.
Totally endorse the stealing of national treasures, only to be found later by Nicolas Cage. But like Forbidden Bridge, like, and then you would have this bridge and you'd like be on spaces, but if someone rolled the idle thing because they also had like custom dice in like every game, you'd push its head down and that entire bridge would sway and you'd try not to fall off or lose your like ruby.
I feel like a lot of the 90s board games were about, okay, it's your turn. What's going to happen now?
Mm-hmm.
You have to push the thing. You have to roll
Don't
the
wake
dice.
Daddy.
Don't wake Daddy.
Grape Escape.
Make 'em, take 'em to the factory. Smash 'em, mash 'em, now the history.
My favorite was It from the Pit, which is like...
Oh, God. That sounds terrifying.
So It from the Pit was this absolutely massive board game because, one, the board itself wasn't a flat board. It was actually like a mountain that the pit was in, so it was huge. It was absolutely massive. And then in the pit was this whole mechanism that was it in its like bubbling pit ooze. And the goal was from the starting area, you had 4 pieces, like for each, all of a different color. Like, so there was the 4 orange pieces, white pieces, purple pieces, and you had control of all 4 of your color. And the idea was to make it all the way around the pit. And there were safe spaces, there were other things, and you had to get to the treasure. But the problem is once you push that button on the button was great. It was actually like a bubble that was coming from the pit. This giant monster, and its head was kind of submerged in its one hand, it would start circling around, and the arm would come up and just grab a random space. And if your guy got dragged into the pit, that particular piece was out of the game. So you could literally get to a point where you couldn't win because all 4 of your pieces got dragged into the pit.
I forget how much trauma came from these board games.
And the thing was, too, like, again, classic 90s commercial. It had, like, you can't get away from it from the pit. Like, get away from it from the pit. There's no escape it from the pit. Like, everything was like a rock solo.
Like this crazy, like, jingle. Like, it was gonna change everything, and you were gonna save the world. It really gave us a savior complex, I believe.
Yeah, like, what was something else that you really loved in the 90s, and now looking back, you're like, damn, that was nuts.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different things. We could go on about the KB Toys display that they always had at the
KB Toys was legit. Like,
no, and I mean, they kind of took it, I think Toys R Us kind of did a little bit of it as well, but yeah, no, KB Toys had...
It was more spread out. KB Toys were like right when you walked in.
KB Toys was a disaster waiting to happen. Literally, everything was piled so high, it was terrifying to go through those aisles.
Literally, KB Toys was the 90s toy equivalent of Ollivander's Wand Shop. You just expect, like, what's his name? Was it William Hurt or, what was his last name?
John Hurt.
John Hurt.
Yeah.
Took William Hurt's different guy. But he's like, just for him to, like, round the corner, like, oh, it's you. I have a special toy for you. Like,
and it was just insane, but they always had these displays out in front. You know, it was in a square, like, plexiglass thing.
Or it was just one of those things that was, like, kind of like the wire mesh, like, shelf with, like, a little bit of a raised edge so you could, like, see into it. Like,
and so they would take these random little toys, literally what you would think is like a cat toy now, where it was just a ball and a raccoon tail. And it just randomly rolled around.
We had that. I remember. Like, that was given as a Christmas gift. Like, that was given as a legit, this is amazing, and you should feel lucky that I gifted this to you toy. Like, that was not...
Oh, no, it was not cheap. It was not, you know, like, knock off anything. It was literally like a legit toy that you would get. That and the barking dog that would flip.
Yes, the flipping dog. Did you ever happen to be able to go to FAO Schwartz as a child?
Welcome to our world. Welcome to our world. Welcome to our world of toys.
Yeah.
No, definitely went to FAO Schwartz.
How there was one of those displays on every floor, and it was like 5 stories tall.
It was
like
amazing. They had the one I went to was the one in San Francisco, and it had these like giant. It looked like Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, so it had the giant's legs down. So you would go up the escalator and see the giant's legs, and Jack climbing up the beanstalk. It was insane.
Seriously, I remember always being mildly terrified because the one in Chicago that I went to. They had the giant keyboard like in the movie Big, but it was a little different because it was literally a walkway and I was afraid of heights as a kid, so like this suspended walkway to get from one side to the other of this floor, like I think it was the 2nd floor up though, so it wasn't even like super tall, but like tall enough that Little B's like, please don't collapse under me, giant piano that people jump on, like I'm like, little kid me is trying to like if people jump up and down on this and the average American is super fucking fat, what kind of structural integrity damage have they done to this keyboard that I'm being forced to walk across because my mom thinks it's really cute?
Oh, yeah, no, and they would force us to do random crap. But FAO Schwartz was amazing. I kind of hate that it's not anymore a big thing. I went to the one in New York recently.
Yeah.
And it was just not...
I mean, I remember going to New York before FAO Schwartz was gone, but when the Toys R Us was still there, too. And going into that Toys R Us, and they're like, isn't it the great? I'm like, this isn't even as good as the Chicago FAO Schwartz. Like, oh, you have a Ferris wheel? Don't care. Like this does not fill me. This just looks like a really big Toys R Us, which is cool, but it doesn't fill me with the whimsy. Especially because FAO Schwartz used to have, like, on each floor, people were demonstrating the toys.
Oh, yeah, no, they would actually, like, fly things in front of you and demonstrate all these different toys. They actually still had that in New York, so that was nice.
Cool. I remember the 2 things that my parents bought because of the display was, do you remember blow pens?
Oh my gosh, was that the
markers that you had to blow in?
Airbrush, yeah.
Yeah, that she was like, but it was like mouth-powered airbrushing.
Oh.
New from Color Workshop. Tired of your ordinary coloring products? Crayons not cutting it? Markers monotonous? Pencils seem pointless? Looking for a better way to color? Look no more. It's a marker. It's an airbrush. No, it's a blow pen. Blow pens. Get ready to take a quantum leap in coloring. Blow pens are air-mazing. Just aim and blow.
Yeah, they bought me those, which I still think, I don't know how I didn't end up just ruining the walls of our house with, like, my weird marker flute.
Graffiti light.
Seriously, like, I apparently had enough thought to not want my ass to get beat, so that was not happening. But the other one was flubber, which was the stuff you put your hand in and it makes the fart noises.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's slime.
But it was a little different than slime. Like, slime will go, or flubber will hold its shape.
Right. I mean, it was a little bit better, and then they came out with the movie Flubber.
Yeah.
So it just.
But I remember my mom buying that not only for me, but for my grandfather and all of my uncles that Christmas. So my grandmother, who didn't even like the word fart, just shaking her head as every man in the family is just sticking their hand in a tube and just finger banging this flubber to make fart noises.
Oh.
Yeah.
So 90s toys were just
90s
toys, 90s toy stores.
They were
just at another level because that was essentially it. These, boomers for the most part had kids, wanted them to be entertained and to leave them alone.
Also, the marketing guys knew that every other toy was vying for your attention and moreover your parents' money.
Yes. So they had the money to go out and buy these things for the most part. And so, they just came up with random stuff.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think is funny that nowadays it would be called problematic, but it was just, and honestly, back in the 90s, it was more like, hey, we just need to cover our bases. Remember how there were always, like, very gendered toys? Like if the girls got Polly Pocket, they came out with Mighty Max.
Yeah.
Or, I remember the one, and this is also the fact that, like, people think dangerous toys stopped in the 70s. No, they didn't. No, they fucking didn't.
No, they did not.
Do you remember Sky Dancers and Dragonflies?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I have had one of those recently.
Sky Dancers came out and it was all very, like, good, like, Sky Dancers in flight, you can be a Sky Dancer too. And it was like, then you had Dragonflies, flight is might, like...
Sky Dancers! They're flying! Fly for me, just for me, Sky Dancers dance for me.
They're new Dragonflies, posable action figures who pack a secret power, the power to fly!
Wow, dragonflies really fly!
And they literally had to make a boy and a girl version of everything. They couldn't have it as just like, oh, this is the toy. Whether you're a girl or a boy, you'll like it.
Girl or boy, it's a toy. No, you couldn't do that.
You couldn't do that. It had to be the boy version.
The Sky Dancers got recalled because, of course, you launched them at people's faces.
Of course. What else would you do with that?
Apparently, like, in Dragonflies, it's like, yeah, we're going to make a posable action figure that can fly, and we're going to make it to boys. Of course, we're going to launch it. But apparently, even with Sky Dancers and their foam wings, like, there was temporary blindness, facial lacerations for these things because they were metal wings coated in foam. Like, goddamn.
The reason toys are not nearly as creative nowadays, I feel, is because of the 90s.
I feel very much.
They sued the heck out of these companies.
Also, the funny thing I remember too is when Lego was really big, because Lego was always big, but Lego it was big in the 80s. It got even bigger in the 90s. It kind of dipped in the 2000s, and now it's big again. But Lego 90s was all very much because they weren't really doing licensed properties yet. So it was like Space Guy, Underwater Guy, Pirates versus Soldiers was my favorite. Like, I don't know why. I always assumed the soldiers were Spanish. I think they kind of reminded me of the Spanish soldiers from the 50s Zorro show, which was like my go-to. That show's also legit. I could do a whole episode just on Zorro.
All right. Let's stay on topic.
We're gonna stay on topic, but. And then they had like one weird tiny section of Lego that was not even city. Like City Legos was still aimed at boys, but it was like, oh, this is the girl Lego. You can go to a cafe and then you can go horseback riding.
Well, you see, the thing is that Lego was kind of testing the waters with that stuff, and then eventually they came into like, oh, now they have like friends, or they have very specific like,
right.
This is the style of Lego. Before that, in the 90s, I feel like Lego was just, oh, these are just the bricks. Have fun with the bricks.
Right, no, but like, oh my god, do you know how much like an original like 1990s like Lego castle would go for these days if you had it all pieces and the box? Like, they really got creative, and then in the 2000s they started with the Star Wars and the other, but that's beside the point.
You know.
But it was funny to me that it was like, you know, and it was always following the trends, like space movies or pirate movies. But then there was like, and then even like the Mummy was, because there was a Mummy Lego set that got really big for a minute.
You see, I grew up in the more poor section of things.
Yeah.
So my,
but again,
for me, it's okay. Did you make a gun with the Legos, or did you make a like random winged Gundam type thing?
I mean, to be fair, thinking of making guns out of things, the fact that Megatron from the 80s Transformers line turned into a gun, I'm surprised we still had Transformers in the 90s.
Well, you know.
Well, we had Beast Wars, though.
Yeah, Beast Wars.
Like the car...
They're coming out with that, I think.
They are, yeah. The Transformers, like, car ones had kind of gone out of style, but we had, like, a poorly animated cartoon, and suddenly Beast Wars was a thing.
I loved it, but I think I get it mixed with a bunch of different things.
Looking back, it's bad. At the time, it was great. But and also, like, every show, whether you knew there were toys or not, there were toys. Like, I only recently discovered how many toys there were for Reboot.
What the fuck is Reboot?
The show that took place inside a computer and was all CGI, and there was Bob the Guardian, and he had to fight the games. You didn't know Reboot?
Was this on cable?
I think it was on Saturday morning cartoons on, like, the basic networks. Here, let me bring it up and see if it like strikes a chord with you.
Maybe. See, I think Saturday morning cartoons, I think of like Pokemon, Digimon.
Well, there's that. I mean, that
Power Rangers.
Let's bring this up.
Reboot. 1994.
Cassertoon.
Fast forward, Reboot song!
Warning, incoming game.
Mainframe is mine.
Look out, it's Megabyte! Sprite, we need your help! Totally cool!
/backspace now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I watched like reruns of this on like PBS or something.
I don't know. Like, I just remember like there being like an episode on like ABC Saturday morning cartoons. Also, it made me think that every time I won a game on my computer, I was destroying part of it.
Oh, God.
Because there was one episode where Bob didn't beat the game,
and
like an entire sector got destroyed. Like,
oh, God.
It's like, oh my God, every time I win, I'm damaging my computer?
Yeah, no. I am pretty much just Fox Kids or WB Kids.
It might have been Fox. I mean, WB was great. So here's the sad thing about WB. I had WB as a kid. And then we moved to a place that had a different cable provider, and it didn't come with WB. So there was like a huge chunk of like all WB cartoons that I had been watching that I then just missed out on.
Yep, they were gone.
Because there was no WB when you moved from Lewis Center to PAL. Like,
oh no, we have to talk about online games for Fox Kids and WB Kids.
Oh shit, right?
I mean, that was just some original crap out there.
Seriously, like, I know a lot of, when I do the lost media videos, there's so many things about, like, Flash games that are lost, but it's like, the amount of crap that they made just to get us to keep watching and keep begging our parents for merchandise.
That's true, because they always, like, came out with, watch the TV show and you can get the code to unlock something.
Yeah. Remember when they asked us to use our parents' permission?
Yeah, parents' permission. Go into your parents' purse and get their credit card.
The other thing that was kind of interesting at the time is nowadays, whenever there's like an online tie-in, that kid's on their phone, like looking it up. A lot of these, I remember seeing those long before my house had the internet. Like the internet came later 90s? Like midnight, like my school, I was on the internet at a school computer before I had internet at home.
See, I don't know why my dad got into the internet craze kind of early.
Okay.
I think we had it around, no, I guess it was about mid-90s. But for the most part, it's like he brought in the computer. I remember the screen going yellow pretty quickly. And yeah, we had internet, and of course we did the wrong things on it, but you know.
I just remember us thinking like it was really cool that we could look up a text document that was like the entire script of Empire Strikes Back, and now it's like you couldn't pay me to read that bullshit.
Nah.
Like it's like, oh God, I gotta read this slight amount of text. I guess I'm never looking at you again. But it's like, it wasn't like a cool website with pictures and stills from. No, it was just a fucking text document.
Oh yeah, and it took like around 10 to 15 minutes to load one page of that document.
It's like nowadays, kids can, this is going slightly off topic, but kids can like get up on their phone, they can look at internet porn and like, Mom, like, what are you doing? Nothing. Swipe away. Honestly, like if you were monitored at all as a child, your mom would catch you before that image even loaded, because it took like 10 minutes for a JPEG to load. Like
it was not useful for that unless you were completely left to yourself, which sometimes happens.
So I do feel though, back on topic, that we always hear the things like kids these days don't know how good they have it. Like that's the thing everybody says. I think the opposite is true. I feel like when it comes to 90s toys, kids these days don't realize how shit they have it. Like you have a video game that like took a couple of years to make, and then it's like maybe pretty okay. And meanwhile, in the 90s, every week there was a new commercial or a new something from a series you already bought from that was just like, hey, you kids want to buy some Mighty Max? Like,
I mean, the
level to which everything was, because now it's even video games are catered to like an older audience and kids just kind of deal with it.
Yeah.
Everything was catered to us in the 90s. Like, they were like, you're going to beg your parents to spend their money that your dad really doesn't, but, you'll beg him to.
Oh, yeah. No, they even had it on VeggieTales, for crying out loud.
Seriously.
I want a Buzzsaw Louie.
Or The Simpsons, buy me Bone Storm or go to hell.
Yeah.
Young man, in this house, we use a word called please.
See, we had a movie about it as well. It starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and
Sinbad?
Sinbad.
Jingle all the way.
Jingle all the way, because we have to have that one toy.
By the way, everybody, if you
and that will fix all of our, parental and kid.
Oh yeah, no, but if you like Jingle All the Way as well as Christmas movies, in what town is it? I don't know. I can't think of the name at the moment. But there's a town in Ohio with a Christmas museum called Castle Noel that not only has all kinds of Christmas shit, they have the Turbo Man and his best friend Booster costumes on display. So,
I'm gonna butcher this because I'm not originally from Ohio. I think it's Medina, Ohio.
Medina is correct.
Okay,
Medina, sorry.
See, my natural way would be Medina, but
I
Medina
wanted to say Marietta, but I knew that was not correct. No, Medina. Also, they have the RV from Christmas Vacation, as well as a whole like walkthrough of like what toys were cool in each decade.
You can go down the slide from the Grinch.
Christmas.
Sorry, Christmas Story.
Christmas Story. Before that, you walk through the actual sets from the Grinch.
True.
No. Again, if you like 90s toys and toys in general, as well as like Christmas stuff, go to Medina, Ohio. Check out Castle Noel. It is appointment only. They are not a sponsor. I just think it's pretty freaking cool.
I mean, the guy who owns it looks like Santa Claus.
His name is Kris Kringle. Like, he changed his name, all right? That man is a Christmas god. That man is like Richard Attenborough from fucking Miracle on 34th Street.
Now, a word to our sponsors. This is brought to you by Powerhead Monkey Spirit.
Yeah, that is what we're drinking. Also, Castle Noel, you should sponsor us. We will.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you like the language we use, but like we're talking you up. So help a brother out. At least,
serious.
At least
free
join,
tickets, something.
At least join the Patreon. It's $3 a month. Like, like that's less than one entry into your guided tour. I should know. We're going there for Christmas. Like. We're taking the family Christmas photo on that tour in front of the RV. It's going to be great. I really wanted us to all get matching Aldi windbreakers, but they did not go for that. Because nothing could be better than that in my mind, because I am insane.
To be fair, he wears Hawaiian shirts to work all the time.
Yeah, this is the guy that hired me.
I hired him specifically because he had a monkey as the...
Specifically the monkey that shows up at the beginning of all of my videos.
Yes, that monkey was the person on the avatar on his Facebook page, because I do check Facebook pages.
Yeah. And my parents always said my Facebook would keep me from getting a job.
He is my moral support monkey.
That's what I do. But yeah, so no, I think we each have time to maybe give like one more toy that we really loved, and then like a wrap up. So what, J-Doggg, what is another toy you absolutely loved as a kid?
Creepy crawlers.
Creepy
They're squirmy and wormy and purple and green. The grossest little creatures that you've ever seen.
Creepy crawlers.
Oh my god, yes!
The boy answer to Easy Bake Ovens.
Yes.
You stick it in and you made this weird silicone, whatever jello-ish looking thing that looked like a bug.
Again, also great 90s creepy crawlers. Most of my head is just 90s jingles, everybody, alright? Like
That's alright, mine are all Disney songs, so
No. Continue, yeah, those were great.
Yeah, so creepy crawlers. I actually got one. That was one of the few, like, 90s, you know...
Like, iconic high-end toys
that I actually got.
Yeah.
And I remember playing the heck out of that and being so disappointed with the fact that you had to purchase more of the weird silicone stuff because you couldn't, you know, melt it down and reuse it or anything like that.
I'll be honest, I never even thought of doing that.
No, you literally had to buy more of the crap.
Yeah, no, I did too. My mom wouldn't let me do it by myself, though, so I rarely got to make stuff, and then I'd put them all in plastic bags to give them, and then they'd start to smell weird.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't last long.
No, it was not a toy that would last long. Essentially, like, I think I played with it for maybe a week.
Yeah.
So I understand why, like, I never got anything nice after that. At least not the brand new stuff.
Right.
But yeah, no, creepy crawlers...
oh yeah.
Just anything that would make something.
We used to play a game because one time I had a toy, like small, it was even flat on the bottom, but it was like a plastic spider because it had come as kind of like this is what you could do. It was in like a little container that had like a magnet. You were supposed to like catch bugs and like examine them in it.
Oh yeah.
One of those, you know, it's like go bug wildlife, child, get out of the house.
Yes.
But I had left
it.
I had been holding it with a bunch of toys and it had fallen out of my hand and landed at like the bottom of the stairs. And my mom saw it and screamed. So it became a joke that apparently my parents still play with spider rings from Halloween to this day, which is hide the spider. And like, so you find something. And the problem being is sometimes you'd be like, and it was an actual fucking spider that had gotten into the house. So when you go to pick up, and it fucking moves, and you about have a heart attack because that's a real spider. But yeah, we did that with the creepy crawlers.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no. That was definitely a good one.
No, oh my god, absolutely. That's a great one. I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to go with like the Batman action figures. Like, specifically the ones from Batman Returns that had the, like, Bruce Wayne that just looked like Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
But that, you know, there's so much Batman. But here, this is a weird one. This is a weird draw that I think it was actually invented, like, well before the 90s, but they had so many licensed tie-ins. Like, do you remember Color Forms?
No, I do not.
So what Color Forms were essentially, like, plastic stickers that weren't really sticky, but you had like a backdrop that you could like put them on and make like scenes. I've noticed Dollar Tree has them again now, but they're more for like cheap board games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Because I remember I had Power Rangers Color Forms. I had Batman the Animated Series. My biggest set that I had, because this is one of those like big expensive boxes, was one from Hook.
What?
Yeah, there was a Hook Color Form set.
How dare you have that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, Hook action figures in and of themselves I had a ton of.
Your time is up, Hook. Fever! Lost Boys attack!
Hook is like one of the greatest movies of all time.
Seriously, come on. You
like,
cannot have a better Garfield Hook. You cannot have a better Peter Pan.
No, I remember the Color Forms. I played the shit out of that, but I also remember, my parents, again, I grew up a very privileged child, but my parents, unlike some of the kids, they just didn't feel like we had the room for any of, like, the large play sets. So we didn't ever have those. Fair. Like, they would buy me a $5 action figure, but, like, if I wanted, like, you know, the Neverland play set or whatever, it was like, no, we don't have room for that. But I remember I had all the versions of Hook. There was Smee, there was Peter Pan, Rufio, like one or two of the Lost Boys, and I also had like one of the Lost Boys like vehicles that they had. I had the crocodile, because even though the crocodile isn't even really, it's kind of a thing in Hook, but he's a giant clock.
He still eats them at the end?
He does, but like they had a literal like crocodile that Peter Pan could ride on.
Oh my gosh.
As a figure. And it was like, my parents, for whatever reason, I idolized Captain Hook as a kid. Like, not Peter Pan. Like, Peter Pan was just some kid that wanted to being a kid was kind of awful. Like, it was good, but like, you didn't really have any freedom. Like, being a Lost Boy would have been cool because you didn't have like parental supervision. But like, as a kid, I didn't want to be a kid. I did want to be a pirate. Like, one, as a kid, you're told don't take things that don't belong to you. And when you're a pirate, that is literally your job.
True.
As well as like, hey, we want to go somewhere, but we live too far away. Literally, as a pirate, your house is your mode of transportation.
And you get to live with a bunch of your buddies.
Yeah, seriously, like, we didn't like
whatever you want.
We hadn't gone through puberty at this point, so the idea of like a bunch of dudes hanging out, no women, was literally just hanging out with your friends. Like,
yeah,
like girls were icky. We didn't want Wendy to be our mom. We wanted to live on the pirate ship and go, I don't know, attempt to kill children.
To be fair, I was one of the weird kids that like girls, but yeah,
you like girls, queer.
Actually.
Yeah,
probably we're good. So yeah, Batarang.
That was the big thing. Is like everything in the '90s had a toy tie-in, whether it was for kids or not. Like again, Terminator 2 had a series of kid-based action figures for a film kids should not watch.
I just can't believe that they never came out with a pretend food from Hook, set, just like random ass colored gloop that you would just go crazy for.
I'm pretty sure it was all like food-colored mashed potatoes.
Yeah, that would make sense.
That is one of the best scenes in the film too. When I worked at a grocery store, we would have like an override card that we would have to hand off as the shift changed, and me and a couple of other guys just literally started with, "You think you're the Pan? I'm the Pan now. You're nothing. You can't fight. You can't fly. You can't crow." And then like someone else would be like, "Rufio, Rufio, Rufio." Great film.
Oh.
I think next time I do one of these, I'm gonna have to riff on '90s films. But yeah. So guys, I really do hope you enjoyed this. I do hope to have more friends come and join me for these ramble videos in the future. If you like this content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, check the links, and also maybe join the Patreon. Until next time, guys, I'm Mr. Sean, and with me is...
J-Doggg.
That's right. And until next time, we hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.